Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real solutions and stories to help you get back on track, to reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your life on your terms. I'm Sheila Mack, your host, and today we have special guest mollie Eliasof. Am I saying it right, Molly? Yes.
Almost. You got it. Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. Licensed couples psychotherapist helping high-powered professionals across the nation to have the same success in love as they have in career. So Molly elevates relationships and marriages for government leaders, Fortune 500 C-suite executives, celebrities, media personalities, and many others so that they can stay focused on their mission while maintaining their relationships at home and truly having it all. That is incredible. So she has a robust client portfolio and extensive years of experience. Molly has grasped how to keep a relationship healthy and alive. She's the CEO of mollie Eliasof Therapy, a group private practice location in Midtown Manhattan, and she works with the most driven and ambitious couples in New York. Molly is a well-known keynote speaker, online course creator, and host of the Next Level Relationship podcast, found on iTunes and Spotify. Her expert advice has been featured in national publications, including NBC, Forbes, Women, Thrive Global, and more. Welcome to the show, Molly.
Hi, Sheila. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. And now my show is related to my new bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. This year, we have had every situation hit us in our relationships, our careers, across the board. And so I'd love to have you start with maybe sharing about your own journey of a time when you personally or in your business hit a tough time, a tough situation, and how you rebooted and got back on track.
Oh, yeah. This is the year for that, right? Your book is right on time. I definitely have seen a huge challenge for couples. So as you mentioned, I primarily help high-powered professionals manage to have the same success at home, in their love relationship, in their intimate connection as they have at work. And with the pressures of what's going on, a lot of couples had a lot of stress happening. They were quarantining together, which caused a ton of stress, and they were definitely having stress in their workplace and having to manage that. So I saw immediately for our business, a lot of couples started to steer far away from couples therapy. Even though that was like the support that was so desperately needed, there was just this like very deep fear of going deep with one another during a time that was so chaotic. It was almost like triage mode had to happen first. So the goal was more to just get through rather than to work through, which we totally understood. So immediately myself and my team started to figure out how we could pivot and really build out some educational online classes where couples could learn information on how to improve their own relationships without the threat of having to go really deep with one another. So it was quite a trying time for us, but we were lucky enough to be featured in NBC and Forbes just about what it means to be a resilient business for women and women owned. So it's been an uphill battle, but like you just have to keep going. That's all we have. That's the only option we have.
Yes. Wow. Well, what I've seen and experienced is that you could be the top earner. You could be the CEO of the company. And if your relationship is going to hell at home, then there goes your company. There goes, it's everything. Relationships, choosing the right relationship, having those conversations before you even get into the relationship, or rediscussing and having conversations about expectations makes such a difference. And then having people having to move home together where they used to love greeting each other because there was away time, and now there's just like together time, and it's like, hello, can you please go away, go to the other room? And you could love each other dearly, but we all need our own level of space and time to, I think there's also that time where, especially if you're a high level person and you're just going, you need that time to decompress before you're ready to like, okay, now I'm going to have this, the whole family life thing is going to show up the minute I walk in the door, and I want to breathe. I need to take a minute or an hour or half an hour or a walk or something different before I can go in and fill that next role in the relationship and be present for the family, for the significant other, the partner. And so that's really important. And we lost that this year.
Yeah. And I thought it was an amazing opportunity for couples. And I did see some couples really dig into this to use this opportunity from the year to have resiliency in their relationship. So to figure out what it means to not only move through the right now, but to figure out how to undo the things that led to more chaos in the house, right? The things that added the tension, the things that kept each other further from one another. You know, what are our now coping skills instead? How do we communicate more effectively and efficiently and immediately? You know, how do we move through things with more fun and lightness rather than getting really stuck and bogged down in the dark, the difficult, and the uncomfortable?
Yes. And, you know, one of the things working with clients myself, one of the things I've had is I remember I had this beautiful couple, and they did give me permission to share when we get on this topic, because they just brought their business home and they have two separate businesses. Now they're running two companies, separate companies from home, and their two kids came home. And they said, our kids loved each other, and now they're home and they're fighting all the time. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And we go into and I already know, guess who's fighting all the time? The parents are fighting all the time. And so the kids are like, okay, well, they're going to fight all the time. So they're modeling how the parents are showing up, and they're fighting all the time. And I said, well, when was the last time you brought everything home? You know, now it's March, April, maybe it's April or May that we first started talking, and you brought everything home, and yet it's fight or flight. Now we've got to survive in our companies. And so everybody was working, and do your homework. You've got to be on track. And I said, when was the last time you had fun as a family? And they were like, oh yeah, no, we haven't done any of that. No playing. We just work. And it's like, no wonder. It's like these little things that when you're in survival mode, and I think a lot of us went there because we had to save the company, but then it affects the family so much. What have you seen with all this adjustment to some people having to be home?
Yeah, there's a ton of adjustments. I think that's such a beautiful story. It's such a beautiful ability for that couple to have a rebirth in their dynamic, the family to have a rebirth in the dynamic. And I think that's one of the things I'm getting to see a lot is, you know, couples that are really choosing to have a new chapter, not just from post-COVID, but like a new chapter in their connection together. How do we reassess how much fun versus work time we're having? What is really meaningful and special and important to us? Like, what do we want for our future, and how much are we working our way towards that or not, right? And I think a lot of couples, especially high-powered people, high-level people, are in go mode. They're just doing all the time. They're innovative, they're creative, they're action takers. And so they're on that track without the slowing down, without the reassessing sometimes, or the reassessment is like in 20 minutes and they're moving on to the next thing. And it's so helpful for making big decisions and making moves, but it can be really ineffective for trying to envision what a peaceful 5 years from now looks like.
Mm-hmm. I think about, you can't run your relationship like you run your company or your business. Mm-hmm. It's a really different, you don't get to, you know, you come in and you start bossing people around at the house and trying to run it very efficient. And it's not going to work out so well as it does. It's not going to be received so well. And I've talked to a lot of people that it's accidental. You're in that mode, especially if you're leading the company in a leadership role that or management, upper management, what have you, where you are, that's your job, is to tell people, go do this and do this because we're doing, you know, we got to get this done. We have a deadline. We're going to meet it, whatever, make the client happy. And you go home and that's not what the other person wants, or it's, you know, you got to take that role off and put on the relationship role and the partner role and connection. And sometimes we forget, especially when we don't have that much time because we're on a deadline. Maybe the company has given you more hours because you were in the management, and now you've got more hours because you're working at home, and they don't realize you have to have an off time. Yes.
Yes. So I love this. And I almost think about it a little bit differently, just for fun. I think I'll throw it in there.
Yes.
You know, I think that if we're starting to talk to our partner like they're our subordinate, then we're in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. Because no one wants to feel like disrespected. We want to feel like we're working together and collaboratively, whatever that looks like in terms of how you set up a hierarchy in your home, right? But we don't want to be talked down to by our partner. I think what is exactly parallel, which is what's so cool, we can keep it simple for people who really get these concepts at work and do it well, they can actually apply it at home, is being really efficient, right? Yeah. How do we be really efficient with our communication? If we think about like a team exercise or trying to complete a project, we have to be efficient in how we're delegating, how we're communicating what we're doing, what are the big objectives, where we're trying to go together. And I think something that doesn't happen a lot in relationships is being that efficient at home, right? We get really stuck in our feelings. We get really lost in the narrative of it. And it becomes this overwhelming thing that starts to distance ourselves from our partner. And the more we can get efficient with what we're trying to communicate, what our needs are, what we need our partner to do to meet those needs, really what the roadblocks are for both of us to getting those needs happening efficiently and effectively together, the faster we can move through those awkward moments and have more of just that good post-vacation feel, of joy and relaxation.
And I think that's open communication. It's something we didn't always learn. And sometimes people just need it very direct. And they, I think male, female, masculine, feminine, and there's a different communication that sometimes goes on. I have 5 boys and one daughter, and I have to speak differently to the boys. Sometimes I got to be so direct, and it's maybe we have a longer conversation, my daughter and I, because it's just a different. I need to just say, this is it. This is what I need, and oh, is that what you wanted? Even just with my grown kids now. Oh, okay, you needed that. That's all it is. Okay, got it, done. As opposed to, I'm going to go all the way around the block and make it really pretty and tell you this beautiful story. And they're like, what the heck does she want? You think about in a relationship, they just want to please each other. But yep. What is that?
You nailed it, right? Because otherwise we can get lost in the weeds of like trying to connect with everyone around us by being so detailed and so, careful with the way we're expressing things. And we want to be thoughtful and intentional, but we want to also be direct. So like you said, you can expedite the time that is like a little funky and get really close to all of that really deep bonding, that really deep connection. That is a perfect example and a way to lay it out. I love that.
Now, I'd love to hear and have you share with the audience more about some of your work that you're doing and how you work, like as an example, maybe of what you're doing with some of the couples you're working with.
For sure. So we just started a new class called Relationship Refresh. It's an opportunity for couples to get a 5-stage process to walk from, feeling disconnected to really reconnected, to be able to identify what the issue is, how to troubleshoot it really immediately and communicate more effectively, how to really amplify all the wins that are happening, how to sustain that, and then how to have all of that, what I call the glue. It's like the ooey gooey. It's the stuff that keeps it like fun and light and connected. And so we walk couples through this 5-step stage process, which is really amazing because basically what they get from this is being able to repeat it over and over again as much as they need for any single issue. So they become the experts in being able to problem solve any topic, whether that's the in-laws or the upcoming holidays or just the stress of everyday life. They start to have the roadmap that moves them through it easily and efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm glad you brought up holidays. I know we're getting ready tonight. We're having this Halloween party in our community. It's a community-wide social distanced Halloween party. Go figure that out. So we're going to be driving around with music playing and all these decorations. and it's funny because it's so different this year. And I'm just thinking, in the holidays, then you add all these other people, relatives, difficult mother and father-in-laws, whoever. I actually loved my mother-in-law dearly. She was incredible. But, you know, it's one of those things where you have a lot of emotions. There's triggers. Not everybody's having the happy holiday on the commercial. This year especially is a different holiday for many, due to job cuts or whatever's going on, just with not being able to see everyone. Maybe you do want to see everyone, depends on your situation. It may be the best holiday you've ever had because you're like, nobody's going to visit this year that I didn't want to see. Yay. So when you think about it, like, I don't have to deal with that. I can send a gift and we can have our own way of celebrating our relationship or family right now. So it may be a gift in its own way. What do you have any tips for people getting through the holiday with their relationship and dealing with extra work and all the demands of everybody else?
Yep, I love this question. I just recorded a podcast episode about this, so I'm so excited to talk about this. It's like one of my favorite topics right now. I am kind of with you. I'm predicting, or I'm hoping for couples that secretly they're going to get whatever they want for this holiday, except if you're someone who likes to host a big gathering or likes to literally be surrounded by people, like physically, tangibly. You know, this could be a way for you and your partner to get exactly what you want in terms of the amount of quality time and with both families. You know, this is the first time you're going to have a chance to possibly be doing it all via Zoom. So you might get to see everyone this year. And you also may be able to set really clear boundaries with one another so that neither of you gets so overstrained or too taxed, and you get more of what your needs are and how to fulfill them. So what I recommend couples do is sit down and individually first figure out what their wants are. What is something they really want to happen on the holidays? And then to figure out what is their individual fantasy. So their fantasy might not be a reality this year, and we all have to cope with disappointments of this year. It's definitely valid and really important to like sit in and notice. But figuring out the fantasy, I think, is really important and different than the wants, because it allows you to really brainstorm what would make you giddy beyond belief, really happy, really fulfilled. And how do we help you move small steps towards that, plus your wants? I then recommend you share that with your partner collaboratively. If you both do it, then you both can figure out what's important to you. Find those middle grounds, those in-betweens, those compromises, the way you can meet each other both ways. And then be really clear about the absolutes, the expectations that must occur. And then you can figure out where the fun is in between. You know, if you're able to break it down that way, you can have really clear expectations from one another and then ways to insert the joy.
That's beautiful. That is so true and needed. This is going to be a great year for that, for new traditions. Make it a new tradition. If it works out, yep, we're going to do that from every year going forward. That's it. It's a new way. Do you have suggestions for those people, young love, new love, just starting to date? Maybe they're starting to look down the path of thinking of getting into a more committed relationship or moving in together, marriage, whatever. And what tips do you have for busy professionals that are working so hard? They really they're ready to have this great relationship, and yet they're having trouble finding a right match, or what conversations, if they are in a great relationship, could they have before that are kind of like preventative to prepare for an incredible foundation to a relationship?
Oh, music to my ears. Foundation, incredible foundation. I love the word choice there. Oh, yes, absolutely. I think it's really important always to know what your wants are and what your fantasies are. I think it's pivotal in any conversation with you have with a partner or a future partner, or even with yourself, right? Because the more we advance and move forward in relationships without knowing what our fantasy is, the more we could be just moving into what we know, or what is comfortable, or what is easy, rather than what the dream is, right? We all want to have our dream, and I think we all deserve to have our dream. I like to really believe in having it all. And I don't define that as having every single item that exists in the world for purchase. I define it as our sense of feeling incredibly fulfilled, right? And if you don't know what that is for you, you're going to start moving in whatever direction is in front of you or what feels familiar. So being able to tap into that is really important when you're starting to get to know someone, or when you're, you know, maybe moving from being engaged to getting married, or deciding whether to get engaged, like taking those big next steps forward. If you're in that relationship already, taking time to figure out what's going to make you happy over time is going to be so important. So not just how are we getting through quarantine, which I think is every couple's question that they're coping with, but also how are we going to want to look as a couple in a year? What's going to make us happy? And then how do we move closer to that?
I love that. And that's something that's so important. Setting the foundation so that you move into this more serious relationship knowing what to expect, and the expectations. And you know, Tony Robbins has this thing where he says, leave your expectations, exchange them for appreciation. And so there's that, but there's also, hey, this is what I want: 5 kids. I want no kids. I want a dog. I don't want a dog. I'm not that clean. I want a maid. I mean, who knows? And everybody's different. What, you know, what you care about. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was telling me, gosh, I broke up with someone, but we have nothing in common. And the person doesn't like anything I like, doesn't like my music, doesn't like going on walks, doesn't like this, doesn't like, but she always wants to do what she wants to do. And I don't like anything that she likes. And I was like, okay, so what was the, you know, so you had fun and now you need to find somebody kind of aligned. It's not like you have to like everything. And sometimes our opposites attract and are able to have a beautiful balance and an incredible relationship. But it's having that kind of conversation before you go so into a relationship that it gets difficult.
Absolutely, because once that foundation is set, everything else kind of can be gravy on top, right? It can be that little bit of extra. You can figure out how to have deeper trust, a greater sense of commitment, more admiration for one another, more fun and excitement together. All of that stuff can be built over time. But if the base of just the commonalities isn't there, if the base of what is our future life going to look like, not quite on the same page, you're going to have an intense amount of conflict moving forward. And it's going to be really hard to resolve it if the two of you are going to be at a tug of war for the rest of your relationship.
Yes. And I think it starts, I mean, at least what I've seen is starting with dating, to be authentic and to be real and honest about what you're looking for, what you want, and how you want to live your life if you want to have a committed relationship at some point, and say, these are like non-negotiables. I'm willing to do all these things, but there's certain things I'm not going to give up my essence and truth to go into. And you'll find that, I don't know what you find, but what I've seen is that there's people that have a dating way where this is dating, and dating is fun, and dating is this, and you get this and that, and we do these things. Then marriage looks like my parents' marriage, or some concept of marriage that is completely out of date or not aligned at all with the couple. And they're like, well, but that's the way my mother did it. And it's like, well, you know, you can marry your mom. This is the way I'm going to do, you know. So those kind of discussing those expectations, even when you're in the relationship and you've been married for 10 years and you're like, you know, why does that always piss him off? What have I done, or her off? And you don't even know that it's because it's this unwritten, there's unwritten rules that we're coming from different households, different cultures, sometimes different places, and we're becoming a family, whether you're living together, whatever, partnership, marriage, and you're combining all that, and there's unwritten rules that if you bring those rules out, it's going to really help.
Yes. And this is what's so valuable about getting to know yourself, right? Even when you're in a relationship, continuing to have what I call self dates, where you really try and get to know yourself on a deeper level, how you're feeling about the relationship, how you're feeling about life, what you want from life. Without that, we move through life just with like kind of blindfold on, right? And so one thing that I see a lot with people who are dating is they move through dating to connect, to find the other person, not necessarily to find their person, right? To find the person that actually fits them, like, you know, two puzzle pieces. They find a person who wants what they kind of want right now, or can fill the time, or that, now wants them, because we all really want to be wanted, right? And that can be really tempting. And I call it like dating for distraction. It allows us to feel at ease right now rather than feel like at ease for the future. So the more we get to know ourselves, the more likely we're going to end up in relationships that are closer to those puzzle pieces fitting together. And then we're able to really add that to the concept of like, well, what did my parents do? What did your parents do? How do we decide what we liked about our dating life versus what we like from our parents' marriage? And then how do we evolve as a couple to have our own rules about what marriage means and what our life together is really going to look like?
Yes, realistically, what's going to happen if you get locked down? That's never right. That was a plot twist on our lives. Like, we had this all figured out. I don't know how many people I've talked with it, like they had it figured out. They had a great relationship, and then they got stuck with each other and like, whoa, this is not at all. This is what you're like all day. Holy moly, no. Yes, so interesting.
Yeah. We're so used to, I think, sweeping things under the rug, and not even in an intended negative or avoidant kind of way, but just because we got to keep moving, right? And like for the first time, we're not forced to just keep moving. So what are we going to do with all the things we swept under the rug and didn't problem solve? Well, now we're faced with them, and you have two choices. You can keep avoiding them and letting it get more awkward, more distance between the two of you, or you have this awesome opportunity to like go, let's clean the rug, let's clean underneath, let's sweep a little, let's have a different approach and get rid of the things that aren't working and really just take in the things that are.
Yes. So now, if you had a couple that may be listening right now, or someone that's in a relationship that has a career and they're really busy, but they want to have a fulfilling relationship, what should they look for, or things that they can do to start rebuilding and reorganizing their relationship?
Oh, this is a goodie. So first of all, I would say know right away that you can have it all. I know everyone says you can't and that you just need to like stop working, but like that's, I don't think, a truth, right? If work really fulfills you, if moving forward in your career really fulfills you, then it's really important to figure out how to bring that into the relationship, but also how to bring the relationship into your life, right? And so rather than looking at how much should work be in my life, I think it's a question of what do I want my life to look like? And how much are we on the same page as a partnership about that, right? Your version of what quality time needs to be in terms of time might be really different than what your partner's is, which is maybe why there's a huge sense of conflict and why they're asking you to work less. It's not really to work less, it's for more quality time, right? So the more you can get clear about what your partner really needs and also what ideal life you really want to live, then you are at least at a starting place. Now, what I love, this is like one of my favorite, what I love is being able to figure out not only how to efficiently communicate, so less fighting, more concrete, more to the point, but also being able to really insert the ooey gooey. So my favorite example, and I don't think people are really doing this that much right now because we're in quarantine, but those days where we both used to run to the office, right? You'd like get up, you'd get ready, you'd start going, you'd both go to the coffee machine, and maybe sometimes you just both be there at the same time, kind of waiting for the other person's coffee to finish, right? In that moment, you have two choices. You can pick up your phone and flip through it and see what emails came through and who on your team you need to get back to right now. Or you can put the phone down, look at your partner, and just like throw them a wink. Just say, hi, you look so great today. Look at you, And that little moment is nothing. It's 2 seconds, 10 seconds, but your partner could start to feel special and noticed. And that's how we like insert the ooey gooey, even in those small moments. It's not always about time. It's about how we use time.
That is so good. I think about it's the little things that you do that can build a relationship, keep a relationship going, or the little things you don't do that can destroy the relationship. It's not one argument. It's all those other little things.
Yep. And after doing this for over a decade, I will tell you that couples that lose expressing admiration to one another are at a huge disadvantage, right? And so like they're worried about the conflict and how do we fight less and how do we get at each other's throats less and how do we say things that are less hurtful and harmful. And that's all really important. How do we manage conflict is an important conversation. But I think one of the even bigger conversations is how do we keep the glue, right? How do we say, I really respect the way you're working hard right now. Or I'm so appreciative that you took out the trash and I didn't have to think about it or even ask you. Or you just look so amazing today, right? All of those tiny little things are essential. So I agree with you. It's like if we subtract that, we're even in more danger.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. Wow. Well, so for this year, as people are going through rebuilding relationships, perhaps, or getting to know each other for the first time in a different way now that they're stuck at home, what tips do you have? Maybe if they have kids at home now too, and now you got your kids homeschooling because the college or the elementary school is still closed in your state. How do we do that?
Yes, there's so many ways. But again, the theme of today is like, come back to you first. And P.S., the self-date can be done by your kids, right? They can go on their own self-date. You can call it something else. You can call it like, you know, self-decompression or self-identity, whatever you want to call it, right? Self-time. You know, it can be a great chance for them to write down, well, what makes me feel relaxed? What makes me feel at ease? When do I feel calm? When do I feel rejuvenated, right? If they're able to answer these questions, my guess is, and you probably have this experience, Sheila, like when you have many kids, that answer is different. Not everyone wants music on. Maybe not everyone wants to read a book. Like everyone's got their own version of what R&R really looks like. And the important thing to do as a family is to try and communicate about that and then figure out how there can be space for everyone's R&R needs. You know, what does that mean? Well, if 3 out of, you know, the 8 of us really need quiet time, do we set a time period, you know, in a certain room and say from 5 to 7, everyone else in the house is just going to respect that we're on quiet time. It doesn't mean we're not going to make noise. We're just not going to have our music going. We're not going to be shouting as much. We're going to allow the readers, the quiet people, the people who want to decompress in silence, to have certain rooms that are the quiet space so that they can really get what they need, right? And then you can ask the same kind of need from your children as a couple. We need date night, you know, like we really need date night, you know, like how can you guys help us with that? Can you, you know, take over and help us make a meal? And can you serve us and make it special for us? Can you, you know, do us a reciprocal favor of, you know, getting preoccupied with your own movie or something like that, and really trusting that, you know, the kitchen and our room is going to be our space for the rest of the night and we don't want to be disturbed. You know, how do you basically work as a family collaboratively to really decide what are the fundamental needs and how do we work around one another's needs respectfully and collaboratively?
Yes. And I mean, I just had a really funny thought. You got to get a lock on that bedroom door, parents.
Yes. Yes to that. Yes to that.
I've heard stories. So,
listen, we're all quarantined, you know, there's right. That's a good point. You need a lock.
And maybe it's just even on your meditation spaces, you're just like, hey, just give me 10 minutes that I just have a break from everybody. Because as a couple, even if you're just a couple, you don't even have kids yet, you need to have time apart in order to be happy to be together again. And right now we haven't had a lot of that time.
Yes. And one thing that I've seen a lot from couples that are doing it really well are couples that when they're in the weeds with one another, they're in the thick of the communication, they're not getting anywhere, they're in stagnancy or conflict, etc., they actively choose to take that separate time, right? They say, hey, we're not getting anywhere with this. I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to take my fitness class, or I'm going to sit on the patio in the sun. Like I'm going to do something for me. And it's not an intentional pull away. It's not out of hostility. This is for me to regroup, right? And that often what I see allows that individual to come back and be like, oh, I see where I got stuck, right? I see why you were basically irritating me so much. And now I get what I needed and what I was having trouble asking for. That can be a total game changer for a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so I would love for you to share how people can, maybe a little bit more about your programs you offer and how people can connect with you if they'd like to get started on recreating their love and getting it to a deeper level this year.
For sure, I would love to help with that. My goal is for every couple to have the most rich and fulfilling experience possible, and especially if you're a high-powered, busy couple, you're my jam. I got you. I got you covered. So you can find me everywhere on social at mollie Eliasof. So that's MOLLIE ELIASOF, like Frank. Or you can find me on Instagram at NYC Relationship Expert. Even though I work with people all over the world, that is just where I've been based for a lot of my life. So that's why it's there. Yeah, and I have multiple ways that you can work with me. I have a class called Relationship Reboot where you're able to just get a really quick, fast-paced class that you get to do some quick learning on how to make things better fast. And then there's an opportunity for a relationship refresh, which allows you to slow that down so you can have all the gains and the wins that last way past that 1 hour class. And then, of course, you can work deeper with me one-on-one. I do less of that now, but yeah, I would love to give you the tools that would allow you and your relationship to keep thriving right now.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you again for being a special guest on the show, and we will be back after these messages. All right.
Thank you, Sheila.